Welcome to the Smith Rowland Show. Let's join our host, Alan Smith and Jeff Rowland.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another thrilling and exciting episode that will enhance your day and bring joy to your life. The Smith and Rowland Show is now on the air. Welcome now our host and chief cook and bottle washer, Alan Smith.
Wow. That sounds like an introduction back in the days of,
Johnny
radio.
Carson.
You had no way before that. I mean, back in the days that you had black and white radio. Black and white television.
Or refrigerator.
Then you had, that was an old timey introduction.
It was. They wanted me to take Ed McMahon's spot, but I hated to do that to him, so I just stayed.
Well, the reason is, I'm going to let you in on a secret on why that happened, is I was taking Johnny Carson's place. And so they were putting me in for Johnny Carson. And I said, well, put old Rolly in for Ed McMahon.
That's right. Because
and they
where
just
one
wouldn't do
goes,
it. They
the
just
other one follows. They wouldn't do it.
That's exactly right. So they said, well, the problem with having him in and you in is it would overshadow Johnny Carson.
Right.
And we don't want anybody doing that. So
let's just admit it. We're ahead of our time. Always ahead of our time. Running way ahead of our
that
time.
must be true because we're never on time. I'll tell you that. Right?
That is exactly
we're either
right.
ahead or behind or something. I'm not sure which it is.
That's right.
Hey, I don't know if you heard, but the
right.
King's sick. King got sick. The King over there on England, he's got prostate cancer, they said. I know there's been a lot of people saying that he was the Antichrist. I don't know how that's going to fit in.
I don't know
with
how
all
that's
that.
Fit in.
But now I'm not making fun of me having cancer. I don't want anybody to have that. I'm not meaning that at all because that's not what anybody wants, and I don't want him to have. But I'm just saying a lot of the prophets out there are saying he's the Antichrist, but I'm not sure about all that. But anyway, that was on. I just happened to see that on the news. But that's not what interests me today.
What's interesting?
Pray for you. What is interesting to me? We had this thing with Alistair Begg last week on him making a comment to a grandma to go to their granddaughter or son's same-sex marriage wedding. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with him. Sometimes I agree and sometimes I disagree. But I will say this. He got way too much attention in my book, but did they jump on Alistair. Now, Alistair Begg told the grandma to go ahead and go to the wedding. But he also qualified it with, was it a boy or girl?
It was a boy. It was a boy. It was a grandson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they had said that the grandmother said, listen, we both know, me and my grandson, that we totally disagree on this, that him doing this. But he said, I do love him as my grandson. And so Begg evidently felt like it'd be a greater move of the love of Christ for her to go than not go. So you have a lot of different ideas out there. Now, here's what I think is tragic. He's been taken off of rosters of speaking at conferences now. We had a radio station called American Family or something radio. They kicked him off of the whole network over that comment. And I dare say Begg didn't give it that much thought when he said it.
I feel like he probably didn't know it. I feel like he probably didn't realize it was going to have this kind of backlash.
Well, he's kind of like me and you. We don't think that many people's paying attention, and you say a little something, then it's like everybody's listening. So anyway, and I understand, it's according to how far, what does the marriage ceremony represent? I mean, it's not like a birthday party, marriage ceremony. Used to be old timey. Then when you went to a marriage, Jeff, it was the whole congregation was kind of in it with you getting married, saying we're going to hold you accountable to your marriage vows and yada, yada, yada. Even to the point in the old days, he used to say, does anybody object to this union or something? Remember?
And in the old days, they even had these weddings in churches. I mean,
Well, what do you know? Who would think that?
Yeah, in the old days they had these weddings in churches where God could sanction the marriage, but now that's thing of the past. Can I just say that?
Well, let me say something. See that comment you just made right there. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what gets us thrown in there with Alistair Begg. All right, go ahead.
Well, let me tell you, I'm just going to say this much: the same crowd that's trying to crucify Alistair Begg won't let their son and his fiance get married in the church, because they want to throw a party and everybody get drunk at the reception. So they'll just get married at some other wedding venue because, and here's my thing. To that degree, I'm not sure God's pleased with that either. Well,
Listen, I
just
wasn't.
come on now,
Oh,
Alan.
well,
Either saddle up and ride with me or don't.
well,
But now, I mean, there you go,
I
right
never
there.
was that good at math, but two wrongs don't make a right. I don't care how much math you got.
Well, that is right. Two
Two
wrongs don't make a right.
make-
I don't think it's right to take a wedding of any kind and turn it into a drunken party in a celebratory fashion. That's why people don't get married in churches no more. They look for these venues that cost $5,000 and $10,000 to go throw your wedding party, and that's fine if that's what somebody wants to do. But can I tell you, I'm not sure that inviting God in to sanction that kind of a situation, knowing that the only reason that you're there is to throw a party when it's over. I don't know so much about all that either. So just there.
Well, now,
Right now to get us kicked off of something.
Well, see, that ain't even what we was talking about. See,
Well,
that's
we
what
was
you
talking
do.
about a wedding, wasn't it?
Well,
we talking about a wedding.
Yeah, a wedding, and they both got air involved. That doesn't make it the same thing. Get
It
back
might be
to our
same
topic. Get back to our topic here. Alistair Begg. Oh, my goodness.
I'm afraid somebody real close to many of our church-going friends are going to these weddings and participating and using it as an excuse just to get drunk.
Well,
I believe that. Windows shut on that deal. Let's move on.
Listen, folks, you got to understand. When Rowland says, he doesn't say windows shut. He says windows shut. Now, when he uses the window shut word, that means he's not talking about it no more. He's done.
That's right. I'm done because I've already convinced myself. That's right.
He's convinced, and the conversation's over.
That's right. Windows shut.
Okay, I'm just letting everybody know what that means. Now, so with Alistair Begg, number one, I got some numbers here. Number one, I don't think Alistair Begg had any idea that everybody's paying that much attention to that comment.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, number two, if you're not in a church setting, okay, now a lot of people go to other venues. I get all that. To me, now this is just this. I know I'm not right here. I'm not claiming to be right. Okay, you with me? If they would have had this, if this grandma, if she was going to a church where these two men was getting married, I'd probably say, well, I just couldn't go.
Yeah,
now, a lot of people say, well, Allen church building ain't nothing. It ain't that. Well, it may be hidden, but it still bothers me. It does bother me. Right. So would I could now, if you went out there and had it in some venue that it was going to be, just a venue, I'm not taking it too serious that it's a wedding anyway.
That's
now,
right.
Just call me old timey and call me an old fuddy fud, but if that would have happened in the church house, I would have disagreed with Alistair there. Of course, I mean, Alistair didn't even get into all of that. I don't even think he was even.
No, that wasn't part of the issue at all.
I don't think that was part of the issue. But I'm saying if it'd been in a church building, I'd have probably said, no, I don't think Grandma, that's sharing it too.
That's right. I agree.
And just like I say, the marriage ceremony, and I get this, that's a sacred thing. And just like we said I think it was the Puritans, I think they really came down on this thing. And that's where we get most of our tradition from that's where, of course, it's like I said, they've taken it out of services now that does anybody object, or if not, everybody hold your peace. And I couldn't sit in that ceremony if that was said. You know what I'm saying? Because I guarantee you, if they'd have said it in that ceremony, I guarantee you, Grandma would have had it popped off. If you'd had my grandma, she said, "Well, now, honey, now let me tell you, we done
that's right.
I
do object to this.
I've told him one right.
He knows I object
better.
To this. He's doing it anyway. That's right.
I can hear Grandma saying it. But now they're not doing that stuff anymore, But it used to be, and I get some people's going to say Alistair Begg shouldn't have told her that, but they're coming from the premise of old-fashioned, old-timey weddings, which I would probably a little more myself, and of that this is a biblical commitment, and I would agree from that. But if I went like Alistair Begg said, these two were having a wedding, I don't call that a Christian wedding. They were having a man-man union, but I don't call that a Christian wedding. I cannot tell you that represents the bride of Christ and yada, yada, yada. I can't do that. But now just in my brain, when the two said they were getting married, number one, I wouldn't have thought they were going to do it in the church anyhow. Number two, I don't even view it as a Christian wedding. It might be a pagan type of union, but
that's what it is. It's a pagan union, which brings me to the next question. Who in their right mind's going to officiate such a union? It shouldn't be a Christian pastor. Even though, let me just go ahead and say, there's a lot of Christian pastors or so-called Christian pastors out there wouldn't have a second's problem with doing that wedding. And the reason
see-
they wouldn't have
they
a problem
see-
with it is because they get paid $1,000 to do it. So
Well,
I'm just
see-
putting that in
see,
there.
well,
Now, I'm just saying.
you didn't have to.
Window
You
shut,
did
window
not.
shut, window shut.
You didn't have to put that in there. Window
Windows done shut. Windows done shut, and I've counted to 3. It's over.
Okay, well,
So-
it's over. All right, well, okay, your point has been made. And I know when windows shut, I throwed rocks at them windows. They won't break.
They
They're
won't
just
break.
shut.
Hey, it was probably
won't
the
break.
pastor from the first church of the Tree Huggers Union that's performing and officiating that mess. So I'm just saying, I agree with you. It is a pagan ritual, and I don't think that.
I don't
it
even
really
take
is.
it as a
Yeah.
Christian wedding.
No.
So if you want to take it as a Christian wedding, just say because you say it's Christian doesn't mean it's Christian.
That's
I
right.
mean, you can. It's just like your
Yeah.
old buddy wanting you to come up with some Christian cuss words. I mean, there's just not any.
Don't pass. They ain't. No.
Yeah.
I'm working
There's
on the
just-
list for him, Mo. He said
Yeah.
Alice just wasn't working out for him no more.
Is that what he says? There's not such a thing as a Christian cuss word. Then there's not such thing as a Christian gay wedding. There's just not.
It don't exist.
No,
That's right.
It just
Can't
doesn't
have it.
exist.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't change those names around enough to make that work. And,
you can't make it and fly.
you can't do it. So anyway, for old Alistair, I think can I say something here, Jeff? I don't think
Just go
nobody's
ahead.
listening but me and you. But I'm more disappointed, a whole lot more disappointed in John MacArthur. He took him off of a speaking engagement.
Yeah, see, I can't.
I am
that's
more
right.
disappointed at all these big Christian leaders that I do think a lot of.
Yeah.
I'm more disappointed in them for.
Yep, than I
I don't
am
mind with
Alistair
them
Begg.
disagreeing with Alistair to say, "Hey, man, that's a dumb call. What are you doing?" And
Yeah.
carrying on dialogue, but to
Mhm.
kick him off a radio station and I ain't letting
That's
you play
just
in my house
insane.
no more.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that's a whole
insane.
lot worse than what Begg said.
And let me tell you something. Alistair
Yeah.
Begg Alistair Begg's one of the most anointed, godly Bible teachers that you'll ever listen to.
That's right. I don't.
And
care
I've
what
listened
anybody
to
says.
I've listened to a ton of his messages from the pulpit of his church, and he has a standard of holiness and godliness that you can see in his life. And he's a great man of God. And to dishonor him in that fashion, I think is not just uncalled for, it's sin.
I can't believe his friends done him that
Yeah.
way, guys.
Yeah,
Come
me
on,
neither.
guys. Debate him on it. Get together and have in your conference, instead of kicking him out, have an open session on debating that issue.
I mean, if you want to do something,
guys.
fly to where he's at, invite him to lunch and have a round table discussion about it and come up with something. But you don't that's humiliating. It's disastrous.
I'll tell you what it
that.
is. You want to know what that is? It's cancel culture in the church. That's
right.
the reason I say that's a whole lot worse than what Begg said. I'm like, you're going to cancel a whole man of God, his whole life, everything
Yeah.
he said. And he agrees with you on every point, but there's one. And you're going to kick him out. That's cancel culture. That's as woke as you can get. Call it religious.
That's right.
A religious spirit is a woke spirit.
That's right. That's all it is.
And somebody needs to. That's same. Window shut.
Yeah. And the thing that bothers me about it, it's embarrassing, Alan, on a number of levels, that we would be so shallow as to say, unless you cross all your T's and dot your I's the same way I do, then we're going to devalue you in front of the entire body of Christ. Now, that's disastrous when you reach those levels. And it's a level of pride in these guys that causes that. And I just cannot for the life of me understand how we can become so quickly deluded in our minds as to think that that's the right answer. From John MacArthur or anybody else. And I love to hear John MacArthur preach. I do. I love to hear him preach. But listen, that is extremely disappointing for me in him. And him and R.C. Sproul get on the stage together and disagree with each other on all kinds of things. Now, they're going to say this is a matter of sin, not a matter of a difference of doctrine. But it's the same thing when you look at Alistair Begg's the totality of his work and his life. His body of work has got amazing fruit that lasts, fruit that sustains. And I just don't understand for the life of me why we want to keep shooting our own wounded. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard tell of.
And I mean good men.
Yeah,
We're not
good
talking about a
men.
bunch of flunkies here.
No, they're acting like a bunch of Baptist deacons up here in the mountains somewhere. I don't
Oh
understand that.
my God! Wait a minute now. You see?
Well,
There
I
you
mean, when they're
go.
shut,
Well,
when
that's
they're shut. You know,
that's
doesn't count to three on that. That's the way they're
see,
acting. I
we
mean,
get
I've been
by
in
handling.
deacons meetings much the same way.
Yeah, well, I agree with that.
I mean, good
But
grief.
anyway, I'm more disappointed in how Alistair Begg's friends and fellow pastors are treating him over what Alistair Begg had to say. I just can't.
Yeah.
Listen, I got a little article here, Jeff, and we don't have a whole lot of time left, but there's a little article here. Here's how it starts. Sometimes we just have to come right out and say it. It's a shame to see evangelical Christians sell out biblical convictions, caving to sexual immorality and to anti-Christian worldview, all to keep in step with the demands of a secularized, politically correct elite.
Well, holy cow. I mean, is that person a Republican or Democrat? I don't know. I can't tell by that.
Well, I mean, it's directed towards Alistair.
Oh, I know it is. Yeah, I know it is.
I mean,
but I don't. And listen, Alistair Begg. Let's clarify that. I mean, we did this the other day too. But let's clarify one more time in case somebody missed those podcasts. Let's clarify the fact that Alistair Begg is not condoning a same-sex marriage.
No.
He still calls a same-sex marriage sin before God.
That's right.
He still calls same-sex marriage rebellion against God and His Word and the authority of God's standard. Alistair Begg is in no way compromising on the same-sex union no, he's not compromising a bit. He just told her grandma that it was all right to go to her grandson's party. That's what he said. And he said only in the case that you have already told him that you don't agree with it, that this is not what your wishes is, but to go and show the love of Christ to your grandson.
Yeah.
If somebody's got a problem with that, it's because they're stupid. And I'll say that to John MacArthur.
In that issue. Word. Yeah, but John MacArthur's our friend.
He is, and I love him. And let me tell you the truth, I pray for him because that man can preach. Holy cow. I don't agree with all of his doctrine, but he can preach. That man can preach.
We're not even disagreeing with him on doctrine here. We're just saying this is a dumb move. I mean, you can't go to... you can't go to war with somebody that's going to cancel you.
And I'm going to tell you something. Listen, I don't even know Alistair Begg other than what I've heard him preach. I've not been around him or nothing like that. But I got to tell you something. I'd go to war real quick with Alistair Begg over John MacArthur at this point. Yeah. I'd be in the foxhole with Alistair Begg.
Alistair Begg, number one, did not throw the grandma under the bus. I guarantee you Alistair Begg would not cancel John MacArthur. No. I guarantee it. He didn't cancel grandma. So I know he wouldn't cancel John MacArthur.
That's exactly right.
He's already passed the test. So
that's exactly right.
I mean,
that's
come on.
Yeah, that's just insane. It's just insane. It's stupid. It's division of the highest order. Yeah, window closed. Division of the highest order. And let me tell you, that has plagued the church for a long time. Right. And we need to graduate from third grade. We can't even talk about spiritual warfare yet. We ain't got there. I told everybody Sunday, we can't get to spiritual warfare because we're too busy fighting flesh warfare. If we used to ever graduate from third grade, then we might get to some high school subjects. And in this case, John MacArthur's acting like a third grader. So is the radio station, American Family Radio.
Yeah. They're second grade. They're second grade.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I mean, if we're going to really fight the hell and the darkness that's on the earth now, we got to get past this first and second and third grade stuff. We've got to get that down.
This writer, this article, Jeff, goes on to say, I'm trying to find this name here. I guess I should be. Well, he didn't write. It says this article was adapted from Russell Moore's newsletter. This is coming from Russell Moore's newsletter. Mm-hmm. But, this is Russell Moore. So Russell Moore is taken from his own newsletter. Okay. Yeah. He goes on to say, Alistair Begg is a very conservative, Calvinistic pastor with a national audience, one of the most gifted preachers in America, modeling how to go verse by verse, book by book through the Bible. He's committed to the inerrancy of Scripture and to a confession. As you might expect, he holds strongly to the historic Christian sexual ethic, which defines sexual relations as permissible only within the covenant of marriage, the one flesh union of a man and woman. If Alistair Begg were to give a lecture on any number of college campuses, he would be shouted down as a right-wing bigot. Really, he's a time-displaced Puritan with a sense of humor and a pretty good golf game. You would never know all of this. You would never know all of this, though, from the controversy that hit Begg from his fellow evangelical Christians this week. He's being called a sellout to the Spirit of the Age. His long-running radio show was canceled from American Family Radio. Folks are asking what happened to Alistair Begg. At issue is a couple of minutes of advice Begg gave on a podcast to an evangelical Christian grandmother, and there you go. That's what you got right there. So anyway, I think you and I have already identified the problem. I think it's cancel culture invading the church.
Yeah.
And it comes in through a religious spirit. And guys, you need to be careful.
Yeah, otherwise known as stupidity. Just everybody in this needs to quit being stupid.
Guys, you need to, let's say Alistair Begg kind of showed his hiney there. Well, cover it up.
Cover it up, and then get him off to the side and tell him he's got to wear breeches.
Just get him off, say, Alistair, you shouldn't have went and said that.
Yeah, you shouldn't
and
have said that.
Alistair say, well, I believe that right now. And they say, well, okay, we disagree there. Now
That's
let's
right.
go fight the devil. I tell you what the problem is, Jeff. A lot of these people ain't failed as much as me and you, and
Apparently
they don't need the grace. Apparently not. And we've learned through all of our failures that we'd go to war with each other because we know. But once you start canceling each other and canceling your friends, you've done something wrong.
You've done something wrong. You've went a step too far.
You went a step too far. That's just all there is to it. Count of three. All right, Rolly, we're out of time, buddy. Windows closed.
Okay, Al.
And you be careful. Keep it between the white lines.
I'll do it, buddy. All right.
Bye. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining today's Smith and Rowland Show. You can check out our website at kingdompropheticsociety.org and our daily Unplugged podcast at smithandrowlandshow.podbean.com. You can also join us on Amazon, Apple, or Spotify.